It's fascinating to me how quickly these big food companies come in and scoop these little companies up. Epic was only in business for 2 years before General Mills grabbed them.
Probably because they don't want them to get too big,
Uh-huh.
that
Well,
they're more expensive to buy, but give them a good, you know, amount of money. Primal Kitchen, I think, was around for a while though,
yeah,
right?
yeah, because they just got purchased in 21. Although I read that who bought Primal Craft, right?
I think so.
Yeah. They put a big stake in the company. One of the big wigs at Kraft bought a big stake in the company. And that's what kind of helped them launch some of the other products that they launched, and then they took over. So yeah, you're right about Tyson. Tyson doesn't really have any.
I
Oh,
couldn't find
Open
anything.
Prairie. It was Open Prairie Natural Meat. That's the one. So Open Prairie,
I've never heard of them.
yeah, they sell their products in Walmart as an alternative meat source for that's grass fed.
Mm.
Not an all. I shouldn't say an alternative meat source, a natural meat source.
The alternative, because I'm like, oh,
Yeah, grass fed.
it's homegrown in the lab.
It's true grass
You know
fed.
what it is. Oh my goodness.
I love it. Oh, it looks like it's just pork. I don't know. Oh, this is interesting. Here are some ways we achieve this welfare and animal welfare promise. Farm check program. Third-party auditors check animal access to food and water, proper human-animal interaction, and worker training at independent farms. For employees handling hogs, pork quality assurance plus training is required. All hog transporters are required to be trained pursuant to the transport quality assurance for hauling livestock. Harvest facilities, robust program in place to manage responsible handling policies, procedures, and that doesn't mean diddly to me. That's so
I
fun.
don't think it's just supposed to sound good.
Yeah.
That's what I think. It's they have practices in place
Yeah.
for human handling. That's great.
And the pigs and the humans get along really well.
They do. They check in with each other and like, how you doing today?
Oh my gosh. So good.
I'm like, and I think that's part of the problem is the verbiage that they use is to make us feel like that was one of the things I was noticing, and maybe it was on Nestle, was that they were just like, oh, and we just have, really healthy snacks with whole grains and dairy and, and I'm like, and what about the quality? I mean, because they were just talking about what's in it, and those are the good things. How about all the sugar?
Yeah.
About the many names for sugar and the many names for corn and the
Yes.
the soy and the
Yes.
all inflammatory.
I did not know Coca-Cola bought a milk company. They bought Fairlife, which I find interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, I kind of didn't go down the path of, I was trying to find the healthier foods that were being swiped up, so I didn't pay it. I saw some interesting things that were under, and I think with Coca-Cola, just how it hit so many countries.
Yeah.
Like all these countries, I'm like, oh, they're getting they're getting poisoned too.
Well,
Actually,
it's just
they
like Brie was
probably
saying,
aren't as poisoned.
don't they get Coca-Cola in the tiny little tribes in Uganda?
Oh, probably.
That was like their
Probably.
sweet treat was a soda.
Yeah, because when we went to Atlanta, we went to the Coca-Cola manufacturing place, and you can try all the Coca-Colas that they have. There's like a ton of them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So, yeah.
It's like the M&M factory or the M&M stores and all the big
Yeah.
cities.
Yeah, I think we have one down by Disney. Surprise.
Yeah.
So
But then you
the
have to
one thing that I saw,
go ahead.
what's that?
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that I know that, neither one of us really found much with Tyson, as far as healthy wise, but I saw something and I couldn't find the validity of it, but I wouldn't be surprised on the other side of that is that supposedly they supply McDonald's and KFC and Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I'm
with
not
chicken.
surprised. I believe I've seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, it was a comment out there, and I was like, huh. So I didn't. Either way, I don't recommend going there anyway. But if you're going to boycott Tyson, that would be.
Yeah.
You're going to boycott those restaurants, and I thought, well, that's actually good information to know, and I don't suggest you go there anyway. And Chick-fil-A is really not healthy, even though we think it is.
No,
because it's a nice Christian restaurant.
Chick-fil-A's Christian Foundation. However, they have a whole DEI department now that they just incorporated 2 years ago. So, yep, they've fallen prey. But I used to, so I grew up in North Carolina. And I was there until I was 30. And in the country where I grew up, there were Tyson farms everywhere, and they're stinky and they're gross, and they're these huge coops. But they always had signs in the yards, whoever had a Tyson farm. I'm sure they made killer money, but they grow a ton of chickens. I mean, like it would not surprise me at all, because those farms are gigantic and they're all over the countryside in North Carolina. And I'm sure North Carolina is not the only place they have them. So,
yeah. Well, and the more you know, the more you know with the way that they take care of animals.
Yeah.
Even though this one company is saying how they make sure they have good interaction with people. That's probably just feeding them, honestly. But yeah, because they actually were doing some things, changing the genes of animals so that they would fit squarely into cages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not have feet. And I mean, do you really want to eat? That's not an animal anymore. That's like they've been genetically changed.
Yep. Especially with
it's horrifying. Well, yeah, and it's horrifying to know what these animals have been through. So if you think about it, they are stressed. So now you're eating animals that are stressed, and they have all different kinds of hormones that they're shooting out because of the stress, and you're eating that. So, I mean, that's just, I don't know, it's very bothersome to me.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there. Do some research on how animals are taken care of, because it matters. It really does matter, and the small farms don't do that.
It's just like the milk, when you're milking cows in these giant spinning racks where a cow goes into a very narrow spot, and then these automated suction cups hook up to their udders. If you really think about it, Tyler's cousin, when he was a kid, or his uncle, used to talk about how bloody milk is, and that's true. So if you look at high processed milk, if you look at the big milk companies out there, whose names I can't remember because we don't drink milk, Lucerne, I guess, is a big one up here. The farms are so overpacked. The cows have no room to graze. They have no room to do anything. And there's a cow farm in California if you're driving down one of the highways, and it's just gross. Like they're just sitting on this big lump of dust and dirt, and it's just awful. So yes, the stress for sure from that. But when they go to milk these cows, it's not like, if they're dairy cows, It's not like they've got grandma going outside sitting on her bucket and gently squeezing, you know, their udders.
Mhm.
They're stuck to a machine, and that machine just spins and milks these cows for as long as it takes to get the milk that they need. And there's thousands of them in there at a time, and probably, I don't know, 25 or 30 on one machine at a time. So the stress causes blood to leak into the milk. Well, then they have to go through that process of chemically removing the blood. And if you get skim milk, I will tell you now, if you drink skim milk, stop drinking skim milk, because by the time they bleach the product to make it white again, when they go strip all the fats out of skim milk, it actually has a blue hue to it, and they have to add a
Mhm.
chemical back into it to make it white. So there's nothing good for you about fat-free milk. I'm just here to tell you right now, do your own research and go look into it. But fat-free milk is the worst thing. It's like drinking a diet soda.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point being is, if you're buying milk from big milk companies like the Fairlife that I mentioned that Coca-Cola owns now, you're buying a very chemically altered product, because
Processed,
they
very
have to alter
processed.
it to get it right. Do
Yeah.
what?
Very processed. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, they would have to.
And I don't
So,
even know for
yeah.
sure the grass-fed milks that I buy. Tyler, he's been getting an A2 milk lately that we buy in Costco. I would imagine that they still go through a similar process. Just because it's a better quality of milk doesn't mean that it's not processed to, because to supply to Costco, you have to have a lot of cows.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that as a small business owner trying to, take in all your orders and get them out at a good rate for people. Yeah. At some point. Yeah. So my thoughts were, when we were doing all this research on these different companies and who's bought who and whatnot, is that if you see healthy companies at your Walmart, at your regular, grocery store, Publix, that was like for us, it's Publix. Whatever your chain chain grocery stores are. You see them at your restaurants too. That might be a problem if it's a chain. But think about it. Those have probably been purchased by one of the big companies like General Mills or Pepsi or Coke, or, there's just so many of them now that are buying up all these little companies. But I think to me, like Vital Proteins showing up, that's a
Costco.
a collagen protein powder that has been touted for years and in my health coaching as a very pure, very good protein powder, collagen powder, grass-fed, the whole 9 yards, has been purchased. And now it's showing up in Publix. And that was one of my first things. I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. They're in Publix. And then I later thought, oh, no, it's in Publix.
Yep.
It's like,
And that's something that I've been hearing on the natural food platform lately, is you really have to be careful. A lot of the collagens that used to be really good quality collagens aren't anymore. So I would definitely do research, and I don't even put collagen in my food. I eat so much meat and fat, and I get collagen through the fat that I don't worry about it as much. But I I would definitely research who owns the company, because I know there's a company out there called Further Food, and I think they're still independently owned. They're small. You have to order their stuff through the mail. Like, you can't just walk into a
mhm.
store and buy it. But yeah. And then I was looking into Siete chips, because that's a huge natural brand, and they actually are still independently owned, and they're 10 years old now, which is amazing. I don't know how they've managed to do that, because they do have Costco, but they have like one pillowcase of chips, their regular sea salt chips, and that's it. You don't have a variety. But I do think it's interesting that they've made it into Costco and they're still independently owned.
That is pretty amazing. There's another one that I just looked up this morning too, because I thought, I wonder if they've been purchased. Simply Mills. has a lot of healthier snacks. They're almond flour, coconut flour,
Oh,
cassava
yeah.
flour based, and started by apparently a 28-year-old girl who was, just had her own health issues, as a lot of things are started, and needed, healthier options. And so it doesn't appear that they've been purchased.
That's good to
So
hear.
that's really good. Yeah, no, it is good to hear. So I didn't look at, some of the individuals. I think we went at it looking at these companies in a different way. Like,
Yeah.
what do they own? What brands are they, do
I
they
had to do
own?
that because I was struggling to think of the brands that I would be more likely
Because
to.
you don't buy them. So.
Right. But here's one.
Leigh Ann's
that's
carnivore.
non-food.
If you didn't know, she's carnivore, so she's only buying meat.
I'm not
buying
always,
a lot of
I
different
am
things.
I am a fair weather carnivore of late, but I'm back on my bandwagon. But another one that's a non-food item that blew my mind, and they've owned this company for a really long time, but I didn't know it, is Burt's Bees. And you and I have talked about that, off air a lot. Burt's
Yeah.
Bees used to have just a super simple chapstick, and the chapstick had coconut oil for the oil base that they used and peppermint extract. And they were really, it was really nice and pleasant for the lips. And I started noticing when I was buying Burt's Bees a couple of years ago that it was starting to make my lips drier. If I didn't have it on, my lips would feel dry. And I was, and that's one thing that people don't realize about chapsticks is they're not there to heal your lips. They're there to make you need it more. That's the idea behind the chapstick industry. And so anyway, I started noticing that with Burt's, and it used to help, it used to heal my lips, and I would feel great and wear it for cold season and then be fine. So I can't remember how I found out about it, but I learned that Clorox actually bought them.
Oh, God. Of all the companies.
Yes. Yes, so Burt's Bees is owned by Clorox. And so if you go look at the ingredients on, it's funny, my blurred, if you go look at the ingredients on their chapsticks now, just their plain basic chapstick has canola oil, safflower or sunflower oil, no coconut oil at all anymore. I mean, so, and what blew my mind was Sheri and I are big believers in the EWG, what's the actual
environmental working group? It's ewg.org.
And they do a rating on all the products that you can possibly buy, and they actually give Burt's Bees a really high rating. The only thing that they have an orange mark on is actually their essential oil, which really surprised me. So everything else has the canola oil, all the oils, they all have green marks. So here's my thought around that is, just because a company like EWG is certifying it as being okay, and just because you're not necessarily ingesting the oil, you're still putting it on your lips. It's still getting into your skin.
You're ingesting it.
And there's no quality form of a canola oil. There's just not. It's not possible because of the process that the oil has to go through to become oil. So
we don't care if it's organic. It doesn't matter.
No.
None of those oils.
Excuse me. So I just due diligence, I started because I have a tallow body butter business, started making my own lip balm, and I'll eventually launch it. But yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to find a good, wholesome. So like Sheri said, if you go to big box grocery stores or Costco and you see products in there and something strikes your attention, Primal Foods hasn't changed their ingredients list yet, but I would be willing to bet that they're cheapening the quality of the ingredient that they're using at this phase. So it might still say organic, but one thing that we learned is an olive oil that says olive oil on it, 90% of the olive oils that we get imported from Italy are cut with canola oil. And because they balance the ratio just right, they don't have to say it. So it's just, I do everything with beef fat and butter. I don't cook with olive oil. My husband loves olive oil, so he keeps it. But I just, we really have to be diligent and discerning in the products that we use, because this world, not just the country, but the world is just out to make us sick.
Yeah, I can't think of any other reason why. I mean, and it's interesting because I think other countries do, and we've talked about this before, they do have more restrictions on their foods and their cosmetics and everything that comes in. So I think my biggest advice too would be take a look. One indicator is, like we said, if it shows up in your grocery store, or it's at Walmart or Sam's, or where, you know, one of those big stores, then that's an indicator. You know, number two is you're going to have to recheck the ingredients.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have to keep watching the ingredients. And, you know, if you're curious about a particular food or product, is go and do some research on it. Because at some point they may sell out because they're offering them crazy amount of money. What was the one you were telling me? 840, what was it?
Oh, that was
which one
Epic,
was
I
that? Do
believe.
you remember?
I think it was
Oh,
Epic.
Epic, yeah.
Oh, no, Epic, Annie's got bought for $840 million. So if you're familiar with the Annie's boxed mac and cheese,
Mm-hmm.
if you go look at what their original product was, their original products are still relatively the same, except they've got natural flavors added to them in some cases. But if you go look at all the new stuff that's being put on the shelves, they all have pea protein and all these weird non-essential fillers in their foods, because why not? It's cheap. You know, who wants
It's
to use
cheaper.
whole
Yeah.
flour for a product that costs more money when you can throw a plant-based protein in there and call it good?
Right, exactly. Because it's generally regarded as safe. Come on.
Yeah, why not?
Another one of my favorite, you know, things. But one of the other things that when I was looking up was Nestle. Okay, so Nestle is really interesting. So some of these are not foods, but waters. We generally, I don't use them, but Perrier and San Pellegrino waters are part of Nestle.
Yes. I was shocked when I saw that.
Yeah, so I would not consider those to be good waters anymore, because I think they've had them for a while. But the other thing that I found, and Nestle also owns Vital Proteins, so
Yes.
now. So that I did find, but this was very bothersome. And these are not foods, but these are things that we think are good. Supplements. Nestle owns Garden of Life.
I saw that.
Nestle owns Puritan's Pride, Pure Encapsulations, which I use.
Oh, I did not
Solgar.
see that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And here's one of the things that I thought was really interesting is they listed pharmaceuticals. And I'm like, oh, really? And it says pharmaceuticals, and this is under, I can put the link, I'll put the link in, but this is what it said under pharmaceuticals. Our expertise in pharma focuses on developing pharmaceutical therapies to prevent, manage, and treat diseases related to food allergies, gastrointestinal intolerance, and patient metabolism. No, I don't think so.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very cautious with that.
Yeah.
So I think that what's the thing that they give people when they're in the hospital to up their protein, the drink? What's the name of that? You know what I'm talking about. I think Nestle owns that one also. I didn't write it down because I was looking for healthy things, and I already knew that one wasn't healthy. So,
Right.
but yeah, so Nestle is kind of, they've got their hand in there, and a lot of, we didn't look at this, but a lot of the brands of supplements are now being purchased by these kind of companies. And so we have to keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, they own this
It's concerning.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing to mention as well, I love that you brought up the waters, because I'm gonna tell you something. If you go try, Coca-Cola owns several water companies too. If you go try Aquafina, It is the most disgusting water on the planet. And people always say to me when I mention stuff like that, oh, you can't tell the difference between waters. And then I'll
Oh
have
yeah,
them drink an Evian or a Whole Foods Italian water and then try an Aquafina. And they're like, whoa, you can taste the minerals that they put in that water. And it's just really gross. It's like drinking something out of your tap.
it is.
You may as well be drinking if you're going to have those waters. So, well, I know it sounds like, you can go buy a bottle of Aquafina for 99 cents and you have to pay $1.99 for a bottle of
Yeah,
Evian. There's a reason for that. It's because the quality of the water is so low and water is toxic. I mean, it just is. And my
very.
guess would be that they're claiming that they're doing all of this filtering of these waters, but they're not really filtering them. They might be throwing them through some weird, filtration system that's
Right.
pulling dirt out of it, but they're not filtering the toxic the toxic minerals and
Yeah,
stuff out of it. And you can tell,
yeah.
you can taste it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Starbucks. So I noticed that Nestle and oh, what was the other one? Hang on.
There's a couple companies that had
Yeah.
it.
So Nestle and
The,
oh, here it is. Pepsi both own a
okay.
section of the Starbucks shelf stable drinks that you can buy. And I just want you to think about that for a minute because I've got a lady that I work with who loves those shelf stable frappuccino things. And a frappuccino is a milk-based drink. So how are these liquid coffee milk-based drinks able to be on a shelf without being in a refrigerator? Go look at your
Yeah,
ingredients. Go check what you're putting in your body. And I also find it really interesting that Starbucks has diversified their sales to multiple big food industries for the grocery store. I was telling my husband last night that they have figured out a way to really make out like a bandit. I'm just blown
yeah.
away.
I saw some crossing with Pepsi and Coke, also Coca-Cola, that
Oh,
they are sharing some things too.
oh, I didn't
I
notice
thought,
that.
wow, that's yeah. I thought it was really interesting, and I was like, huh. But yeah, I also looked up. Let's see, Pepsi. I looked up Pepsi,
Yep.
and so a couple of things that they had that were maybe considered more healthy: naked juice.
Mhm. Which
So
is
it's a fruit juice. Come on, it's a fruit juice. It's got veggies in it. So it's owned by Pepsi. Kavita kombucha and probiotic drinks owned by Pepsi.
yeah.
And yeah, and then the Sabra hummus and guacamole. So that's another one you'll see. I mean, I've seen it in my grocery
Oh,
store.
yeah.
Didn't think much of it. If you look at the package, it looks like it's healthier, but it is owned by Pepsi. So something to keep, track of because these companies are going to try to make their biggest profit. That's what they're going to do.
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing that I would say is, and I think we've touched on this before, but a lot of these things that we're talking about, they're in your health food store too. So make sure
Yeah.
that you're looking at the ingredients because Annie's is in your health food store. They're healthier, right? So,
Yes.
and so is Epic. Epic is in your health food store. And I saw a point in time, and it might have been when they were switching over. They were like things were on sale, and I guess they were doing repackaging maybe, and maybe that think about that too when they're repackaging. Why are they repackaging? Because that's expensive. And then, Coca-Cola, I think we saw that has the Honest Tea,
Yes, I saw
and
that.
which is also, at one point was considered healthier, and Adwala juice. So another one that was considered healthier, but honestly, what is it? The naked juice and Adwala I have in my little when I talk about sugar because they are really, really high on carbs.
Yeah.
So, and it's just juice. It's just juice. So it's just hitting your system like sugar. Yeah. And I know that we started going down this rabbit trail because we started seeing different things, right? And dairy was the thing that set us off the first time.
Oh, yeah.
When
We'll
we,
go down
when we,
that's a whole
yeah,
podcast
because
in itself.
Yeah. So
But if you want to
we
touch
were
on it,
looking at
that'll give
different things.
everybody something to look forward to.
Well, I mean, it's just the dairy, and when you were talking about the milks and whatnot, so find a local person that you can buy raw milk from that is actually physically milking the cows themselves, and it's grass fed, etc. Find a good source if you're going to drink milk, because it really does matter. And that kind of leads also into the dairy. What is it? 90%? 90% of dairy is GMO.
Yeah.
We were like, what?
Cheese in particular.
Cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, cheese.
Yeah.
So 90% of cheese is GMO. Now, so again, go to your organic, because I think that I know that it's not supposed to be GMO, but raw is, again,
Raw.
for your raw.
What's interesting to me is I've looked at some of the cheeses that we were buying, and they're still not using animal rennet. They're using a vegetable. So whether
Vegetable.
and so the GMO factor is
Yeah.
you can have certain percentages of GMO in your products, and they can still say they're non-GMO. So my question is, how are you getting a vegetable rennet for curdling cheese that's not GMO? I don't think that's possible.
No, probably not. I think that it's because it's altered. Okay. So the rennet is altered, but they get around it. They get around it because of that. But yeah, you want to look for the animal rennet.
Yeah. And it's hard to
cheese
find.
Manufacturing.
It's really hard to find. As soon as Sheri and I dove into this, and again, we're going to do more research before we talk about it in a full podcast, but as soon as Sheri and I discovered this, I started looking at all the cheese brands in the natural food store here, because it's the only place that we grocery shop, and 90% of them, literally 90% of them, had vegetable rennet, or they would call it vegetable enzymes instead of a rennet. And then the ones that had rennet didn't say if it was animal or vegetable. So it's just, you just don't know.
Yeah.
So
it's yeah.
There are companies that tout that they still use an animal rennet, though, so you just have to do your research. There's one other company that we didn't touch on. I just want to have people recognize them because they're huge, and for some reason I didn't think about it until just now, and that's Hormel. Hormel is also one of the big food companies out there. I think we even have stock in Hormel, but they own Applegate. And if you've ever looked at Hormel, so I grew up eating Hormel hot dog chili. If you ever look at their ingredients list, it can be pretty scary, but they own Applegate sandwich meats, which is supposed to be really good for you. So check your ingredients on that. Make sure they're not putting nitrates in it. They own Justin's, the little chocolate peanut butter cups. They also own Natural Choice sandwich meat, which is a true Hormel product. And then they own Holy Guacamole. So when you started talking earlier about the hummus, it reminded me, because I started thinking about that guacamole. So definitely, they get snatched up. These big companies just get snatched up, and they don't make big announcements. You have to go do your research, but it is so important.
And it's not always easy to find.
No.
We spent a long time looking at all this stuff, and it's just like,
yeah.
And I said, I know I'm going to cry when I hear some of these companies. So it's like,
I was really sad when I found out that Nestle bought Hue, or not Nestle. There's the other company, and I can't, it's not one I'm super familiar with, but it's called, what is the name of it? Mondelez. So Mondelez is one of the top 10 food manufacturing companies in the world, and they bought a company called Hue Chocolate. The transaction was finalized in 2021. And Hue, HU, they have a kitchen in New York that is like this really big deal. But my understanding is the food there isn't that great. But they have since started putting out, almond flour crackers and all of these really snacky foods. So the thing that I loved about Hue was they use coconut sugar instead of cane sugar in their chocolate. Their chocolate bars are typically pretty dark, 70% above, and they had a very small selection, and you could find them in a natural food store when they first came out, or you could buy them online. And then I don't know how, but they just blew up, and now they have a kitchen in New York, like I said, and they've got all of these snack brands that they're selling too, that they've gone way outside of the chocolate that they originally started with. So another part of that is, even if it's supposed to be something healthy, there's an addictive quality to flour-based products. And so if you're snacking on their foods because they make quality chocolate, you're still getting the unnecessary calories. It's one thing to take a bite of a really dark piece of chocolate to satisfy a sugar craving or whatever, which is usually because you need magnesium. And the other thing of that is to snack, and people love snacking on crackers. So just, that's what these food companies want you to do, is eat and eat and eat.
And it's not, when you say flour, it's not just wheat flour, it's all the different flours now that they have out there that are good for you. Like they have cauliflower flour, and they have cassava flour, and almond flour and coconut flour, and they all have a bit of addictive quality to them for the way they make them, because they,
Well, and technically speaking, almond flour isn't good for you. Almonds are highly estrogenic, and it's not good estrogen. And the thing that people don't realize is, they think because they're gluten-free, they're eating all of this almond flour, but they're still destroying their hormones, which could be what's wrong with me, because I used to cook with almond flour all the time until I learned this. And now my hormones are out of whack. But almonds are very estrogenic with bad estrogen. So when you think about how many almonds are you actually eating, if you eat an almond flour cake, you're completely upsetting your hormone balance. And the same goes for, the cassava flour. It's a root vegetable. Cassava is like eating a potato. So you're eating a potato flour, which is every bit as starchy as the gluten flour. So you're really not getting away from gluten. I mean, you're getting away from gluten, but most people aren't really intolerant to gluten the way that they think that they are. I think that this has just turned into this huge food. This is my conspiracy theory for the day. I think that the gluten intolerance that people have been diagnosing themselves with is actually not a gluten intolerance. It's a GMO intolerance, because most of the flour that we get in the US is GMO. And every time I've eaten flour in another country, I have not had those problems. So now I buy Italy imported flour, and I don't have those problems.
There you go. So interesting. Yeah.
Something to,
no, I think you're right on that. It's not, the wheat itself is not GMO, but they spray it with Roundup to harvest it. So that's what your gut cannot handle, is because you can't wash it off. It's not being washed off, and they can't wash it off. It's
Yep.
So
just think
and
about
that's when they just harvest it. So to dry it faster.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, what we're going to ask.
So now that we've destroyed everything you wanted to eat.
All those lovely, healthy brands. But our question to you is, if you know of a healthy food out there that's been bought out by big food that we didn't mention, please list it in the comment section below, and let us know. The more we know, the healthier we can be. So, and I'm sure there are some that we missed. I'm sure.
Yeah, and there's healthier brands out there. So, don't feel like there's nothing out there that you can eat, because there are healthier brands. You just need to know. Just, knowledge is power if you use it. So do some research and find out, how can you be healthiest? Because right now, it's especially right now is very important to try to stay as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to destroy our immune system. So.
And another piece of that is, the cheaper the food, the lower the quality. The higher the food, the better satiated you are typically, or the more expensive the food. So a lot of people will look at price tags on food and say, oh, I can't, or I won't. But if you're purchasing something that you think is healthy, that's half the price of something else on the shelf, the odds are there's fillers and there's preservatives and there's things in there that are just going to make you hungry again, because you're not actually getting good quality food. So, you know, you might actually spend less money. My grocery bill is way less because I typically only eat meat than it was when we were eating snacks and produce that we would throw away because we couldn't finish it fast enough. And I'm not suggesting that everybody not eat produce. I know there are plenty of people out there that say I can't and I won't, and that's fine. That's my choice. But the point is, we buy high quality grass-fed meat and I eat a big fat ribeye and I'm happy and I'm not hungry again for 14 hours. So just think about it.
Yeah. I mean, and if you aren't just a meat eater, which I am not, getting that fat and that protein, you know, and that's what Leigh Ann's getting, is the fat and the protein out of that meat. It's important if you are eating vegetables, and, you know, you can use avocado oil, which Chosen is the brand that we understand is, you know, is actually avocado oil. So, you know, just pay attention to that. And, you know, so that's at least one oil that is okay to use.
Yeah.
Because the olive oil is kind of sketchy. I would look and see where it came from. That would be, you know, if you're going to buy an olive oil, I would look and see where was it manufactured.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing I've looked for on olive oil, and they don't all say this, is 100% olive oil. I don't know if they can say that if it's not. So I know that they get away with a lot of things, but I've seen a few that do say 100% olive oil. So maybe look for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Again, let us know if we've missed any foods or if you have questions about a specific food item or company, and we will do the research for you. And we are just so grateful to get to spread this information. So please don't forget to like, subscribe, share all the algorithmic things so that we can continue to give you this information. And we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.